All right, folks, today I am going to service this 2021 Yamaha RMAX 4 limited edition. RMAXs are kind of known for being a pain in the ass to change the engine oil for because there's so many drain points. And I'm not sure if the two-seater and the four-seaters are the same, but like I say, this is a four-seat. So first thing I'm going to do before I lift it up is remove this plastic engine cover. So between the back seats is this this cover. There is 5 of these. Sorry, it's dark. There's 5 of these little plastic nuts. They just roll out, or they just spin out. So 2 on each side, and then 1 here, right there in the middle. So I'm gonna get that off. Okay, so remove that cover. Here is mine. You will notice I have the Weller Racing induction or the emissions block-off plate here. That is not factory, and there's normally a different cap there with some hoses on it. So that might look different than yours. But this is what we're going after. This is the engine oil fill. And then also over here is the, where is it? Right there is the engine oil tank. This is a dry sump oil system, which I'm familiar with because the Yamaha YXZs are the same way. So I have to access both of those. I'm gonna go ahead and spray those with some carb cleaner to get them cleaned up before I take those dipsticks out, and I will check level first. After warming up the engine to operating temperature and then letting it settle for just a couple of minutes, I then checked the oil level. Mine was right on the hash marks, and then I removed the dipstick and the oil fill cap from the head. And don't forget, both of those have O-rings. Don't lose them. The on mine, the dipstick lost its O-ring. I just had to reach down and get it. It was sitting on top of the tank, and then the fill cap had it still attached to it. The procedure for getting it warmed up is basically, according to the book, is warm it up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and then turn it off, let it sit for like 5 minutes, and then you check oil. So also same thing, you want that oil to be kind of operating temperature, maybe a little cooler before you're draining, so its viscosity is good to drain. So down here in the back of the car, this is the rear passenger side footwell. Well, not footwell, kind of, it's behind the tire. There is 2 10mm bolts and one of those little plastic screw fasteners. You need to remove this cover. Oh, and there's also, sorry, there's some more 10mm bolts here and here. You need to remove that cover to access the engine oil filter. There it is. I had some insulation falling in mine, so I had to move that, but that's what you're after. So it's not the easiest thing to get to, but it's there. Also a good time to kind of do some inspection, look around, see how dirty you've gotten your car. Okay, so next is the drain bolts. So there's 2 sets of 2 drain bolts down here. These 2 that are on the engine, right there, are the first ones. These two that are on the oil cooler lines are the next ones. So I'm going to start draining those. So the first two on the engine are 12 millimeter, and they do have washers on them. Okay, so both the engine oil and the oil cooler lines are just kind of back to a slow drip. I'm gonna put those bolts back in. So I will go back and torque everything to the proper spec in a minute, but for now I'm just putting the line bolts back in. So the last drain point is this oil tank. This is it's kind of behind the rear driver's side wheel and tire. Right there. And that is a 10 millimeter. And I'm gonna drain it now. Okay, so after making a big old mess, because this oil tank has a little spout on it, but the spout doesn't clear the frame rail and skid plate for me. After that's drained, put the bolt back in. So let me show you the struggle bus I got going on over here. I have used an oil filter wrench. It's that little, I don't know how to say it. It's an oil filter wrench. Not the strap kind, but the slip kind. And it's not working, it's just slipping. Now it's stuck. So what I'm doing is I'm jamming a punch through the filter and I just make it pass all the way through and then I twist it off. All right, so this is what I had to do with the oil filter. I've done this before. Factory oil filters are a nightmare to get off. They over tighten them big time. So basically I just take a punch and I hammer it through the side. Once it's loose enough, then I can just hand spin it off, or I'll use a proper oil filter wrench. I've tried the strap wrenches also. They just don't work. It's just a problem. So the solution is here. I use the K&N filters. I get all of these fluids and filters from Weller Racing, for my YXZs and for my RMAXs and for my Razors. And the great thing about RMAXs and YXZs is they use the same oil filter. There's a few different part numbers that are compatible. I use the KN204-1. There is also one called the KN204. There's one right there. It is just slightly shorter, like the capacity is smaller, it is less. Anyways, but of course the great thing is that it has a hex head on the tip or on the end of it, and you can get a socket right on it or a wrench. Also, this is the oil that I use for the engine. It is also from Weller. It's the Lucas oil for the engine. As always, you want to pre-fill your oil filter with some of your oil. So I just kind of fill it up. Can't really fill it up all the way because it's gonna spin right out as soon as you turn it sideways to put it on the car. But the idea is that you just get you kind of saturate that element in there, and so the oil pump and stuff doesn't have to work so hard. Also, I will mention this sink drains to a bucket. It does not drain to plumbing. So this is kind of my parts washing sink. Get a little bit of oil on this O-ring as well. That'll kind of lube up the installation, as well as get a better seal on that. Okay, here is the book for torque values. I am going to run through now and torque everything. Got my little torque wrench out. None of these values are very much. They're all kind of low. The two oil cooler lines are 10 Newton meters. Oil tank is 9 Newton meters. The two on the bottom of the motor, the actual engine crankcase, is 20 Newton meters. Oil filter is 17 Newton meters. Okay, so the book says we put 1.59 quarts in the head and then 2.17 quarts in the tank. So I'm gonna start filling. And this seat is aftermarket, so you probably have more space than this in yours. All right, so I'll put 2 quarts in the tank. Now I'm gonna put 1.5 quarts in the head. Okay, so I double checked torque on everything, and I have added 1.5 quarts to the crankcase. This says 1.59 quarts. And then this says 2.17 quarts. Oh, that's without filter. So with filter, 2.8 quarts with filter change. So I've got a little less than that put in now. So what I'm gonna do, it says to start it, let it warm up to 140 degrees. So, you know, operating temperature. Okay, so warmed it up to 140, and then I turned it off for 10 minutes. That is exactly the instructions. And so now I am going to take out the dipstick. I'm keeping the O-ring on with my finger by feel. Ugh. Okay, and now I'm going to wipe. Okay, and in order to check level in the RMAX, you just set the dipstick on the threads. You do not screw it in. And then pull out. And I am not even on the dipstick, so obviously need to put in more. Okay, folks, so that's it. I topped it off, I let it run again, topped it off. It took almost 4 quarts. I'm gonna put this cover back on, and then that's it. I'm actually gonna go ahead and do another video of service on the transmission and differentials next. So that's what I'm getting started for. I gotta take out that seat for that, but there you go. That's the oil change for the Yamaha RMAX. This is a 4-seat LE 2021 model, but I believe it's basically the same thing for all models, all years so far. They just released the 2023 models, so 2-seaters and 4-seaters are the same powertrain. It's just the access to the engine is a little bit different. I have a 2-seater that I will do an oil change also, so you'll see a difference there. But you basically flip up the bed on the 2-seaters. The 4-seaters have that cover in the back. But whether it's a LE or an XTR or a base model or a sport model, it doesn't matter. They're all the same powertrain. And that's it. Like and subscribe if you would like to see some more Yamaha YXZ and Yamaha RMAX content. Thanks. Bye.